So you and I both know having a little extra cash in our pocket is powerful. I remember as a kid finding a $20 bill on the ground and I was elated. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm rich. Now, we all know nowadays $20 does not make you rich. But wouldn't an extra $1,000 a month make a difference in your life? Wouldn't that give you a little bit more options or freedom that you can have? Well, in this video today, that's exactly what I want to talk about is how do we actually create that extra $1,000 a month, really, truly passive income. Now you might be asking yourself, is this legit? Can I really create $1,000 a month of passive income? And is it really passive? The answer is yes, but I want to dig into how you can actually do that and how long it might take you to get to that point. So be sure to wait till the end because I'm going to give you that secret of what's helped not just me, but many, dozens and dozens, even hundreds of our clients do the same exact thing. So be sure to hang out till the end here. All right, so first and foremost, is $1,000 a month even possible? Because if you've done the traditional thing, maybe you've tried to put money away in savings, you put it at the bank, you're earning 0.nothing% at the bank, you know you're not making $1,000 a month there. You might have to have millions of dollars with them to finally have $1,000 a month. It's pretty ridiculous, right? And then you have your financial advisor, and your financial advisor tells you all these things, and I know I used to be one once upon a time. They tell you all these things, they'll say, oh, well, if you just put your money away for the next 40 years, eventually you might have enough money to barely live on, to eke out a living. Now, they don't always say this, but that's the truth, because when you factor in inflation and everything else, you realize, I gotta save a lot of money to live on a little bit of money. Yeah, I could get to $1,000 a month, but it sounds like I'm gonna have to wait till I'm at least 60 years old before I can finally tap into those retirement plans. Do I really wanna wait that long? Well, the truth is, guys, you don't have to. I used to be that same mentality. I actually was a financial advisor. I thought if I were lucky, right? If I didn't save my money in 401ks and IRAs and just invested in the stock market, I thought if I packed away enough money, I turn off the AC in the summertime, turn off the heat in the winter, just make my family miserable and just bundle up in the winter or whatever it might take to be cheap and not try to drive extra miles because I want to save that little tenth of a gallon of gas or whatever it might be, just so I could be cheap enough to put all my money in the stock market. And then maybe in 15 years, when I'm 40 years old, I could retire off of $5,000 a month. That was my dream, guys. That was my goal. The problem was this, is that was a goal that was based on numbers that didn't even work in the stock market because the market wasn't making as much money. Plus, the truth is that after that point, I was in the middle of Y2K. I was dreaming that. Then we had the Great Recession, and now we had good market swings or whatever, but I wouldn't have been anywhere close to that. And I'm in my late 40s now. But I was actually able to retire in my late 20s because I realized it wasn't about accumulating a bunch of money. You've been taught you have to accumulate, store away your money into this nice little nest egg, squirrel it away, and then eventually you'll be able to live on less than the interest. Typically, a financial advisor will say you can live on 3% of whatever you saved. So if you want to do $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year, well, 3% of that, guys, that means you have to have $400,000 saved up that you can then live on 3% at $12,000 a year. And then depending where you save it, you have to pay tax on it anyways, right? Now, $400,000 a year, and yeah, you possibly do that in mutual funds in the stock market, and that's not bad. But what if you could do it easier? So let me give you an example. So we had one client that came to us and he said, all right, I've been putting my money in the market. I'm not impressed. And this is even with the market going up for 14 of the last 15 years, but still, it just doesn't feel like it's enough. What do I do? And so we looked at the situation. We said, well, listen, you could invest for income, passive income, just like Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad says. If you create passive income, there's freedom. Because when you have more cash flow, you have more options in life, and that's where you have more freedom. Well, he's like, well, how do I do that? I said, well, you got $100,000 in a savings account right here, right? Yeah. Well, do you realize that there's somebody that has a fund that they'll take a minimum of $100,000 and they'll pay you 1% a month or 12% a year? Well, do the math. What is that? Well, that's $1,000 a month. Right. So your $100,000, rather than living on $3,000 a year, like your financial advisor says, you can actually live on $1,000 a month. He's like, wow. Well, is it risky? I said, well, yeah, there's always risk. But here's the good news. It's backed by real estate. In fact, there's a lot of equity in this real estate. So even if things go wrong, they could sell off properties and do things to make sure you get your money back. But yes, it is actually backed by real estate and they'll pay you 1% a month is the agreement that they'll pay you. It's like, wow, that seems amazing. It is. And that's the thing, guys. If you want just an extra $100,000 a month, one, yes, you do need more money, right? Money, it does take money to make that kind of money, especially passively. If you don't have any money, by the way, and you're trying to make $1,000 a month, well, then I've got other videos on that one you can watch. But I'll tell you, it's going to require time and energy. But if you've got money, you can want it to work harder for you, well, then you can get it to do more. I had another client, same kind of thing, had $1 million saved up. The financial advisor said he can live on $30,000 a year, which he didn't want to have in retirement. And so I said, well, why don't we actually get it in different places? And so we diversified it, right? So he decided he was going to buy a couple of duplexes, that were managed by a property manager. These are called turnkey rentals. He did that. He also put some money into a share of an apartment building. So he had some money in apartments. He also had some money in oil and gas investments too, where he owned the land, but any drilling they did, he got paid royalties off that. And the next thing you know, his $1 million now was generating between $100,000 and $130,000 a year, same money, just working harder. And by the way, he's not even pulling out the $1 million. The $1 million, that golden goose is still nice and big and fat, producing that kind of income for him. So is it possible? Absolutely. But it requires you to think differently about your money, not focus on just accumulating it and growing it forever in some 401k or IRA that you can't touch for decades anyways, and instead focus on how do I generate income with this money that I have right now. All right, so what else can make you $1,000 a month, right? Now, it depends on what you're earning on that money. Because for example, I've got money in a particular investment that is a minimum of $1,000 you can invest. By the way, bonus tip here, I personally recommend don't worry about really investing your money until you have at least $100,000 anyways. If you make 10% on $120,000, you can also make $1,000 a month. If you're making 12%, then you only need $100,000. Now, if you're only making, say, 8%, on your money and you want to make $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year, well, now you're going to have more, right? If you're only making 6%, now you're going to need double of the 12%. You're going to need $200,000, right? So it depends on where you're investing your money and what kind of returns this pays you. These returns can vary. And by the way, I recommend, because sometimes you might have to pay taxes on this money, you might want more than $1,000 a month to actually live on $1,000 a month, because you might have to keep some money aside for taxes. So even if you could take $100,000 to make $1,000 a month, you may want to invest $150,000 just to make $1,500 a month and have more than enough to pay taxes. Again, consult your accountant and all other professionals there to make sure that you know what works best for your situation. But I know your whole goal is at least $1,000 a month. But I'll tell you, most of our clients don't want to stop just there, right? $1,000 a month is great, and you could do a lot with it. But what if it could be $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month, $5,000 a month, or more? You could do that. And sometimes it can be in different places you don't really realize. For example, we had a client that she had about $650,000, didn't know what to do with it. So we started having her look at different options, looked at some rentals, and she mostly did things with like lending her money out, did some things in the oil and gas space. Well, that now generates over $6,000 a month. That was her goal. That's all she needed to do to get to the point where she's really work optional, right? Where now she has enough money to pay her basic bills. She works because she wants to, not because she has to. But guess what? She still keeps working. Why? Because she wants to keep adding to that. She wants to build up that income faster and more. So her next goal is $10,000 a month. Now, how long does that actually take to do that? It's the same thing with $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month may not take you very long, depending on how much money you have. But with her, getting to $10,000 a month might take a little bit longer. Well, if she keeps working and she was putting away about $20,000 a year, add that to the $70,000 a year that she's earning, that's $90,000. Now, if that $90,000 generates 10%, that means the next year she goes from $70,000 a year to $79,000 a year. So next year she's at $79,000. Now she takes that $20,000 plus 79, that's about 100 grand. Make it 10%, that's another 10,000. Now she's at 89,000 a year. She then takes that 89,000 plus the 20,000, right? Now it's 110,000. She does that, invests it, 10%. And again, all results may vary. 10% is not guaranteed. I'm just using easy numbers here. But now by that next year, she's finally at 10,000 a month. So now she went from just 4 years, 70,000 a year to 100,000 a year, right? And just, another 2 years, she'll be well over the 10,000 a month. So that's about 5 to 6 years that'll take her to get there, depending on what she has. Some of them, like real estate properties, I just looked at a client recently where he had bought a bunch of rentals. Now he only had about $250,000 invested in mutual funds, just with doing what his financial advisor told him. And then we said, what if we use that to buy rentals? He now has 8 rentals all around the country. Those 8 rentals are generating about $4,000 a month. By the way, he only needs about $4,000 a month to live. The cool thing is that income has increased every year because as rents raise, his income goes up too. And so we were looking at his situation. I said, well, wait a minute. Look at this. You got a lot of equity in this property compared to the cash flow. We could actually sell off these 2 properties. And yes, we'll lose about $600 a month. But because of all the equity in these properties, we can actually generate about $1,600 a month. So you can actually go from $4,000 a month to $5,000 a month, because now you got equity in these properties. We can sell them off, buy new properties, even do a tax-free exchange so it doesn't worry about taxes or anything, and make that kind of money now. By the end of this year, it'll go from $4,000 a month to $5,000 a month. So if you're just going for $1,000 a month, it doesn't take a lot. At least not if you're doing the right things. Would you rather save up in mutual funds, saving $400,000, or would you rather save up $100,000 to $120,000, right? And even if you're at $50,000, could that $50,000 grow into something more? Now, I'll give you an example of my own story, right? I put $32,000 down on a rental property. This is one that, again, it's a turnkey rental where a property manager deals with all of it. I didn't have to find the property. They found it for me. They're now managing the renters. I don't even know the renter's name, to be honest. But over those years, I went from $300 a month with that $32,000 to now it's about $800 a month, just shy of $800 a month. Guys, that's almost $10,000 a year. So even if I had two of those rentals, I'm not saying that every rental is exactly the same because they all vary, they all differ to some degree. Some are better, some are worse. But still, if I had two of those rentals, that would be giving me about $1,500 plus a month, right? I would be well over the $1,000 a month, and it wouldn't require $100,000. It might just take a few years to get there. So it really just depends. But I will tell you this, it's probably a lot easier and there's probably more hope than you think there is. But it requires you to switch your thinking to get away from that traditional, slow, gambling financial advisor way where you're hoping and praying the market will go up, in which it may or may not do. Instead, do something that's more certain, not guaranteed, but definitely has a real asset behind it that can help you be able to create that more freedom and do it in a faster way. Now, if you're trying to figure out like how much passive income can I create beyond just doing the simple math, maybe there's some other areas, maybe there's some money locked up in prison you don't know about. Go to moneyripples.com, click on the passive income calculator. You can actually figure out how much in about the next 12 months or so you could create in your situation. So go fill that out right now.